So today on Give Us This Day, I have the thought that I want to share with you, and it comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 3. But before I start, as a child growing up, I always saw God as a hard person. So when I read the verse of the lazy servant that saw God to reap where he had not sown and gather where he had not scattered seed, and he was afraid of him, I could relate to that. And so I always had this idea in my mind that God was out to get me in one way or another. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 11, it says, "For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, if anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, each one's work will become clear, for the day will declare it, because it will be revealed by fire. And the fire will test each one's work of what sort it is. If anyone's work which he has built on endures, he will receive a reward. But if anyone's work is burned, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved, yet as through fire." Over the years of hearing this verse, it always took me back to God just wanting to burn us, God just wanting to get us. And he just sets up these little traps, if you will, to get us. But one day I was pondering this from a different perspective. I was pondering to the perspective that God doesn't set up traps for us, but he uses this refining process. And sometimes that refining process includes people. It includes circumstances. It includes situations, things that we don't necessarily look at and say, well, there's fire. I see fire, fire. Because when I see fire, I run from fire. But sometimes we don't actually see the fire that's happening around us or to us. But it gets hotter and things are heating up and you're seeing the circumstances or situations coming against you. And so I got a fresher revelation or a new revelation, a full revelation of this through a more mature relationship with God, that he wasn't out to smite me or out to get me, but he wanted to refine me. Now, that doesn't mean that the carnal things in my life don't get burned up. Doesn't mean that the wood, hay, and stubble, because it says that they will be burned. And if that's all you've ever built with, you're still going to be saved, but you're not going to have a whole lot to give an account to. But if you're building with gold and silver and precious things, that fire, that process of God comes to refine us. And what really got me thinking about this was the story of Joseph. I think if you're tuning in today and you're watching this, you know the story of Joseph. You're familiar with his story. You know that his brothers literally wanted to kill him. How sick is that? Like, they just wanted to kill him. He was so favored by their father. The only solution they could come up with was they wanted to kill their brother. It's so strange how do you even process that? Well, one of the brothers steps in and he says, you know what, let's not do that. Let's just sell him off for slavery. And he's kind of got a plan where he's thinking, they're not going to sell him off. They're not going to do anything to harm to him. I'll rescue him before this things get out of hand. Well, before he knows it, his brother's been sold. And so now they've got to make up a story to their father. And then he's sold into this slavery. He becomes a slave. He ends up in jail. Well, at his father's passing, his brothers come to him and they say, hey, we want you to know our dad said that, you should forgive us for what we did to you. You should forgive us of the things that we did against you because, we sinned, but it was evil, but God should forgive us and you should forgive us too. And this is what Joseph says. He says to them, "Do not be afraid, for am I in the Lord's place? But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." I think that's so awesome to think that God turned this around for them, for him specifically, and even brought a freshness to his heart to say, you know what, you meant this for evil, but God turned it for my good. And he brought about something so different that day. I want to encourage you. I don't know what you're in or what you're going through, but let's look to our Father, not a Father that's looking to smite us or get us, but one that has an amazing plan, that's using circumstances and situations so that the best version of us can come forward. Be encouraged today that you might be in the middle of it, but God's at the end of it. And there's a great story being written about your life. God bless you, and thanks for joining me today.